Hello everyone, this is Curtis with Curtis Reacts. Today we're going to be reacting to Huberman. This is called Huberman's Faith in God. Andrew Huberman. Oh, man, I know a little bit about him. I know he's a scientist of the brain, and I know he's in a lot of YouTube clips, but I haven't really heard him talk a lot. Sounds like he's got some kind of faith in God. This is from a channel by a guy named Cameron Haynes. He got a lot of subscribers, man. I'm walking amongst giants. I'm interested if people say they have a faith in God, and I guess we're going to hear what that means. I'm a Swedenborgian Christian. Check out my other channel, Off the Left Eye, if you want to know everything that I believe about stuff. I don't know. I want to see what this is all about, man, because is it like science and religion, or is conflict hypothesis true? Are they mortal enemies? What's Huberman saying? Okay.
When you're talking about the brain and all the, I mean, you mentioned it last night, and this had me thinking.
Nobody cares, work harder. That's how it's going to be. Nobody cares, work harder. I'm going to make a little sign that says, like, I've tried enough for today.
When you think how all that works, I have to take an aside and say, how could that happen in nature is without a creator?
Yeah. So, well, here's the thing. I mean, we know that the programs, meaning genes, so genes, DNA, and there's DNA, then there's RNA, and then there's proteins. And proteins are the action end of the game where they say, hey, like, grow over here, don't grow over there.
This has nothing to do with Huberman's faith in God, but him just saying that right there, DNA to RNA to proteins, and proteins are the action. 1700s, Emanuel Swedenborg says he has these visions, goes and sees the God and how God works and everything, and says it's all of reality is structured around love, and which is the underlying essence of thing, wisdom, which is the manifestation, and then use, which is the actions of those things. Man, I'm talking about DNA, RNA, and proteins. You have the DNA, which is the thing that's kind of like stays in this little world. RNA is the thing that emanates from that, which then actually touches the molecules that need to make the proteins that go do this stuff. Let's love, wisdom, and use, baby. Huberman, did you hear that? Do you know that? How do I comment that to him?
Become this kind of cell, dopamine cell or a serotonin cell. We know that those mechanisms are incredibly well conserved from mice to humans. Now, certain things happen in the human brain that you don't see in other species.
Go on. What's going on up here?
Like the elaboration of the parts of the brain that are involved in context and planning, especially. But the memory systems, the ones that control hormones, breathing, heart rate, they're very similar. Not exactly the same, but very similar.
Okay.
When you start to study and understand brain development, as I did, or neuroplasticity, or dopamine, you have to, meaning I don't care if you're an atheist, agnostic, or believer in creator, you have to step back and just go, wow, wow. Now, then of course there's this difference among scientists as to who believes in God, who doesn't. I'll just go on record. I'm very comfortable saying it. I believe in God. I do.
Believes in God. And you know what? He said that really well. Maybe that's just kind of the affect he has, but when he says, I believe in God, I'm standing on my 2 feet and I'm not cringing away from it. It's just, I believe in God. This guy's got no reason to, like, God's not, going to pull sponsorship from the videos. So, and he having delved into this stuff, it sounds like what's convinced him is everything's amazing. You look in there and it's like, there's a mind in here. Okay, he believes in God. Let's hear what else you got.
I think there are many things that science can explain. There are certain things science can't explain. But I'll even go a step further, which is that all the elements of science are entirely compatible with the idea of there being a God.
That's exactly right. I don't even get why everyone's so about this anyway. What science is like telling you how stuff works. It's totally compatible with God. Actually, in my humble opinion, the more you learn about the physical world, the more clearly you see what God is like, because God is the one that's in that design.
And I'm not the first scientist to say this. I mean, Einstein believed in God. Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists ever, clearly believed in God.
Emanuel Swedenborg. Hello. Actually, Jung is well documented that he read a lot of Swedenborg and it influenced him. Man, this whole thing of like, it's got to be science against religion. What Huberman was just saying about how everything you do in science is compatible with the idea of God. For Swedenborg, he couldn't have gotten the spirituality that he got without the science. So if you're not familiar with Swedenborg, come on, man, get familiar. He was just a scientist and a very successful Renaissance man kind of scientist, was inventor, mining engineer, anatomy, anatomist, botanist, chemist, so on and so on and so on. He was learning all about that, particularly human body, how it worked and everything. And then he started to have these out-of-body experiences. But everything he learned once he started to like see the other side was informed by his knowledge of physical things. Like the structure of heaven mirrors the structure of the human body. And so learning what he learned about the human body actually made it so he could understand what was going on in heaven. I just did this video a little while ago about how the way that the brain is structured is an image of the way angels move in heaven. And it's like they're so intertwined. They're so intertwined. And you really can't have a very deep spirituality without understanding how the physical world works, because it is our window into the design, man. It's not a fight. Science and religion are long lost buddies.
There are many atheist scientists. There are agnostic scientists who are just kind of like unsure, right? Well, I'll just say this. Secretly, I've always prayed.
So not even just, I believe in the idea of God, but I've secretly prayed my whole life. I love that because I pray. That's what I use to stabilize myself. That's when I don't know what to do. So he's doing that too. How many people are actually doing that? Reaching out to say, God, I know you're out there. Can you help me with this thing? Or what do you think about it? Like consulting with management about it. Okay. So this guy's got a robust spiritual life.
But I'll say this, I absolutely pray. I absolutely love that the idea, but also what for me is really a deep belief, which is that we can't control everything. We're not in as much control as we think we are. And that the magnificence of biology and the magnificence of nature is, it's impossible for me to conceive how that could come about any other way.
He likes the idea that we're not in his control of as much as we think we are. Just like I was barely in control of forming that sentence. That's like, in a way, the heart of spirituality, because the enemy of spirituality, Swedenborg described as what he called love of self, which does not mean in his terms like, oh, I have good self-esteem. It is the pride that I'm the greatest thing that exists and I look down on everything else. So for him, he's obviously smart and successful, looks like he's buff. He's got everything going for him, but he's saying, hey, I pray, and I am glad to welcome an intelligence that's higher than me. That's like the crux of the God thing. Like, I'm glad to welcome that in. I don't mind if it knocks me off my pedestal of having been number one. I knew some of this guy, like I've seen some of his clips, but I like him. This is cool.
It just is. Now, yeah, I mean, I think that, full stop.
Who do you pray to?
This is getting super spicy.
That's an interesting one because I think God. Yeah. So I absolutely do. I've actually started reading the Bible recently, start to finish. I feel like it's my duty to like learn and in some sense compare Old and New Testament. I'm really interested in the stories, but I'm fascinated by the story of us.
Man, this guy bringing the hits. Being a neuroscientist is like on the forefront of human knowledge. All that work is like, I've got to get into, this is pulling me into religion and even to the Bible. Like there's some gravity toward the Bible and there's all these rational objections to the Bible. It doesn't make sense here. There's a contradiction there. But my belief, which I got from studying Swedenborg, is that there is within the Bible this incredibly coherent message that is as amazing as the brain. Like it's within the layers there through correspondences. There's something just as awe-inspiring in there. The fact that he's got that gravity pulling him into it, there's something to it. There's something to the Bible that keeps people coming back.
Right, and the story of everything. And so... But yeah, I pray out loud in the morning, sometimes again in the middle of the night if I wake up. And it's only recently that I've been doing this more often.
It's giving you peace?
Or... Oh, my goodness. It's given me so much. It's given me peace. And, this is going to sound weird and probably people are going to be like, what are you talking about?
What is this guy talking about?
It works. It works. There's a way in which certain things I was grappling with, I just couldn't resolve. I couldn't do it. And it was all internal and I just couldn't do it.
Dude, I was not ready for this. This is too much good stuff in a row. So he's, again, with the humility thing, for him to say, like, I need it. I wake up in the night and what does it do? What's the impact? I feel peace. And then he's saying prayer works. And some people think, well, prayer works, meaning I prayed for a Maserati. Is that even a good kind of car? I pray for that. and then it comes, or I pray for wealth and then I get it. He's saying it works. It was all internal stuff that I was grappling with. That is exactly the way prayer works according to Swedenborg, because praying is, hey, I need your help. I'm not obsessed with myself. I have humility, and I know that if a change happens, I can attribute it to you. Because if I'm Curtis and I just things keep going well for me, I'm more and more likely to say, maybe there is no God. I mean, I'm fine on my, but the fact that if you get into a state where you've asked for it, and then he's seeing that he couldn't do it on his own, recognizing his own powerlessness, and then it gets resolved, he gets on this podcast where he doesn't have a ton to gain by saying he believes in God. Probably people make fun of him for it, but he attributes it to God. He says, no, look, God is fixing this for me. What Swedenborg discovered. And Swedenborg was like a Huberman. He was all successful. He was doing all kinds of cool things. And he came to realize that his dependence on God. And he said that was the key to happiness. Just like this guy in this video, I'm not going to try to pronounce his name, is saying that he gets this peace from it. Dude, bruh.
How were you trying to resolve these things? Like have an answer?
Yeah, discipline myself. I mean, it wasn't like I was super, undisciplined. I mean, obviously I have a lot of self-discipline, but
yeah,
I always pray, I want to remove my defects of character. I want to, I certainly pray for other people.
Remove my defects of character. That's called repentance. That's like self-examination and repentance. That's what Swedenborg would call it. Where you look inside yourself, see things you want to change, then ask the Lord for help changing them, and then go and live a new life. It's exactly what he's talking about. Man.
I mostly, these days I pray for the ability to really harness as much care and love for other people and for myself, something I haven't been that good at in my lifetime, in order to be able to put the best possible work into the world, to really serve. Like I really see myself as serving higher power. Like I'm a conduit.
Oh my goodness. You're talking about the purpose is to serve. That's called usefulness. It's the thing we're meant to base our life around, according to Swedenborg. And I'm a conduit. He's saying this because love and wisdom flows through you. Everything Swedenborg did that was good, he would say, no, God did that. And actually he said, believing that, what Huberman is saying, is a very important thing to do. Because believing that everything comes from the Lord, goodness and truth comes from the Lord, that's actually the let there be light moment in our life. That's when we understand how life actually is. And the more that we attribute everything good that happens to God, the more we're in heaven, which heaven is the state of mind of happiness and love to the Lord and love to the neighbor. This guy obviously read all of Swedenborg. Well, either way, he's come to the same conclusions. Man, okay, it goes on. I'm going to stop it here. I'm going to watch the rest, but I can jibber jabber. These things can get so long. But I'm going to say, that's cool. I see in that the emergence of the same internal state that Swedenborg was pointing toward in him, and done organically and done by somebody who knows the physical side of life and the scientific side of life as well as only a very small percentage of people in the world do. And he's saying, no, that's what's making me have this life. So I like everything he said. Would you not want to have him as your neighbor, knowing that's what his life is like? He wakes up in the middle of the night and says, please God, will you help me get rid of my character defects? Who doesn't want that person around? Hey, way to go. Faith in God. God is becoming hip again. I'm here for it. Thanks, everybody. I'll react to you again soon.